I'm going to start this from the beginning because nothing about that day felt strange at first. I was 26 years old, living in Oregon, working a regular warehouse job, and I had a few days off. I decided to go camping alone, something I'd done many times before. It was normal for me. I liked quiet places. I liked being away from people. The campground was familiar. A public site not far from a highway, but far enough that you couldn't hear traffic. Trees everywhere. A few fire rings. A bathroom building near the entrance. When I arrived, it was late afternoon, and there were only 2 other cars parked. Nothing felt off. I set up my tent, unloaded my gear, and cooked a simple meal. I remember checking my phone and seeing no service, which didn't bother me. That was expected out there. The weather was calm. No wind.
No storm.
Just clouds and cool air. As it got darker, one of the other campers packed up and left. I watched their headlights disappear down the dirt road. After that, everything went quiet. The kind of quiet you notice when it settles in.
No voices. No engines.
Just insects and distant water. I told myself I had the place mostly to myself. That thought made me relax. I locked my truck, zipped my tent, and lay down. I remember thinking how peaceful it felt. No work the next day.
No alarms.
Just one night alone in the woods. That's when I heard it. It wasn't loud. It wasn't sudden. It was soft enough that I almost ignored it. A sound just outside my tent, like fabric brushing against something. I assumed it was the wind, even though there was none. A few seconds passed. Then I heard it again. Slower this time. I held my breath and listened. There was no animal noise.
No rustling.
Just the sound of someone shifting their weight on the ground. Very close. Too close. I stayed still, telling myself not to jump to conclusions. Campgrounds attract people walking around at night. Someone could have been lost. Someone could have been looking for the bathroom. But then I noticed something that made my stomach tighten. Whoever was outside wasn't walking anymore. They weren't moving at all. They were standing there. And the longer I lay there listening, the more I realized something else. They weren't making noise because they were being quiet. They were listening too. The campground was part of a large state forest about an hour outside the nearest town. I had been there a few times before with friends, but this was my first time going alone. It was the kind of place families visited in the summer. Picnic tables, fire pits, clearly marked sites. Nothing remote or extreme. That was part of why I chose it. It felt safe. My campsite sat near the edge of the tree line. Behind it was thick forest that dropped down toward a creek. In front was a narrow dirt road that led to the entrance gate. The bathroom building was a short walk away, maybe 2 minutes if you took your time. During the day, everything was open and visible. At night, it felt very different. I arrived in the early evening, just before sunset. The sky was gray, and the air smelled damp, like rain had passed through earlier. The temperature was cool, but comfortable. I could hear birds settling down and insects starting to come out. It was quiet, but not unsettling. Just calm. The reason I was there was simple. I needed a break. Work had been stressful, and I hadn't taken time off in months. Camping was cheap, familiar, and helped me reset. I wasn't trying to push myself or go deep into the wilderness. I just wanted one quiet night away from everything. The only other people I noticed were a middle-aged couple in an RV parked closer to the entrance and another solo camper a few sites down. We nodded at each other but didn't talk. No one seemed interested in socializing. Everyone was doing their own thing. As the sun went down, the campground changed. Shadows stretched across the ground. The trees blocked most of the remaining light. Small sounds started to feel louder. Every snap of a twig carried farther than it did during the day. By the time it was fully dark, the couple in the RV had turned their lights off. The other camper was gone.
I didn't see when they left.
I just noticed their site was empty. No fire.
No noise.
No movement. I was alone now, or at least that's what I believed. I finished cleaning up, put away my food, and checked my surroundings one last time. Everything looked normal. Nothing out of place. No one nearby. I remember feeling a sense of control, like I had planned everything correctly. I got into my tent, zipped it shut, and laid down. The ground was cold beneath me. The forest smelled wet and clean. I listened to the quiet and let my mind slow down. At that moment, there was no fear, just the feeling of being alone in a place that was supposed to be safe. At first, everything sounded normal. The rain came and went in light waves. Water tapped softly against the tent and the leaves above me. The forest had its usual noise. Insects. Distant movement. Nothing that stood out. I lay there with my eyes open, listening. That's something I always do the first night camping. I like to get used to the sounds so they don't wake me up later. Most noises repeat themselves. Once you recognize them, they stop being scary. That's why I noticed when one sound didn't repeat. Somewhere to my left, I heard a slow crunch. One step, then another. Not random, spaced out, like someone walking carefully. It stopped after a few seconds. I waited for it to start again.
It didn't.
I told myself it was probably a raccoon or a deer. Animals move in patterns that can sound human if you're tired. I rolled onto my side and closed my eyes, trying to relax. A few minutes passed. Then I heard it again. This time closer. The same slow steps. Controlled. Whoever or whatever it was wasn't running or wandering. It felt deliberate. I opened my eyes and stared at the tent wall. The fabric was still.
No saw those.
No movement. I reached for my flashlight, but kept it off. Turning on a light would let anything outside know exactly where I was. The steps stopped again, right outside my tent. I could hear my own breathing now. It sounded too loud in my ears. I tried to slow it down. That's when I noticed something else. The smell. A faint scent that didn't belong out there. Like oil or metal. Not strong, but noticeable. I stayed completely still. Seconds passed. Then longer. I started to think maybe I had imagined it. Maybe my mind was filling in gaps because I was alone. Then the tent fabric shifted slightly near my feet. Not enough to open anything. Just a light pressure, like someone brushing against it. My chest tightened. I felt the urge to sit up, but I didn't. Moving felt like a mistake. Whatever was out there hadn't made a sound since. That silence felt intentional. I strained my ears, trying to hear anything.
Wind. Then.
Footsteps. There was nothing. Just the quiet, broken only by the forest far away. And then I heard breathing. Not mine. It was slow, the wrong campsite. Maybe a drunk camper was confused. But none of that explained why they were standing so close or why they hadn't spoken. The breathing stopped. That silence was worse. It felt like the moment right before something happens. I waited for footsteps to move away. They didn't. Instead, I heard the faint sound of fabric shifting. The tent wall near my head dipped inward slightly, then released. Someone was testing it. My heart was racing now. I slowly slid my hand toward my phone, careful not to make noise. The screen lit up for half a second before I covered it with my palm. I checked the signal. Nothing. No bars. Outside, the rain had picked up again. The sound should have covered movement, but I could still hear the person breathing when they leaned closer. I could feel the vibration of it through the thin tent wall. Then I heard a footstep behind me. Another one. They were circling the tent. The steps were slow, measured, stopping every few seconds. I followed the sound, turning my head slightly as it moved from one side to the other. Whoever it was knew exactly where the tent door was. They paused there longer than anywhere else. I felt trapped. The tent suddenly felt too small, too fragile. One pull on the zipper, and there would be nothing between us. The zipper moved, not opening, just enough to make the metal teeth click softly against each other, like someone had pinched it between their fingers. I squeezed my eyes shut and held my breath. My body felt hot and cold at the same time. I thought about running, but I knew I wouldn't be fast enough if I made the wrong move. A shadow passed over the tent. The outline of a head and shoulders blocked what little light filtered through the fabric. They leaned down again, close to where my face was. I could hear them clearly now. Quiet breathing. Controlled.
Come.
This wasn't someone lost or confused. This was someone who knew I was there and wasn't in a hurry to leave. That's when I understood something that made it worse. They weren't trying to scare me. They were waiting. I don't know how long I lay there after that realization. It could have been seconds or minutes. Time stopped feeling normal. All I knew was that if I stayed still much longer, something worse was going to happen. The zipper moved again. This time it slid down an inch. That sound snapped me out of it. I yelled. Not words. Just a loud, raw shout, as hard as I could. At the same time, I kicked the tent wall with both feet and reached for my keys. The person outside reacted instantly. I heard them stumble back, feet crashing through leaves and mud. I didn't wait to see what they would do next. I slammed my thumb down on the panic button. The truck horn exploded into the night. The lights flashed through the trees, turning the campsite into a strobe of white and red. The rain, the horn, my breathing, it all blended together. I unzipped the tent and crawled out, slipping on wet ground. I didn't stand up. I stayed low and ran toward my truck, my eyes fixed on the driver's door. I could hear movement behind me, fast and uneven. Someone was running too. I reached the truck and yanked the door open. As I climbed inside, I saw him. He was tall, wearing dark clothes. His hood was up and his face was partially covered. He stopped when the lights flashed again, just a few yards away. For a split second, we looked at each other. Then he turned and ran into the trees. I slammed the door shut and locked it. My hands were shaking so badly, I dropped my phone twice before I could dial 911. I kept the engine running and the horn going, afraid that if the sound stopped, he would come back. I watched the tree line the entire time. Every shadow looked like movement. Every branch felt like it was hiding someone. The dispatcher stayed on the line with me until I saw flashing lights on the dirt road. 2 sheriff's vehicles pulled into the campground, their headlights sweeping across the site. Only then did I start to breathe again. But even with the police there, I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst part wasn't over yet. The police searched the area with flashlights and dogs, but they didn't find anyone. The forest was quiet again, almost peaceful, as if nothing had happened. I thought maybe he had run far enough to disappear entirely, and I felt a brief, hollow relief. But then one of the deputies called me over to my campsite. They crouched beside my tent and pointed to something half buried under leaves. It was a backpack. I hadn't noticed it before. They pulled it out and opened it carefully. Inside were items that made my stomach turn. A large knife, duct tape, gloves, and a water bottle. There was no ID, no phone, nothing to tell us who he was. But what really hit me was the notebook tucked into the side pocket. Pages filled with lists of campsites, dates, and times. Every entry had a small note. Alone, tent, night. I flipped through it slowly. Each page detailed a different campground, a different date, and often the same description. The person alone, unaware, unprotected. My campsite was the last entry. The date matched that night. The deputy looked at me and said, "This wasn't random. He's been watching, planning." I felt my knees go weak. He hadn't stumbled into my campsite. He hadn't wandered around by accident. He had known exactly where I'd be. He had probably been waiting for hours. Then they found something else. A small camera lens, barely visible in the underbrush, angled toward my tent. The realization hit me like ice. He had been recording me, watching, studying me before he even tried to approach. Asked if they could identify him. They shook their heads.
No fingerprints.
No prints on the backpack. Nothing on the camera. Whoever he was, he knew how to leave no trace. I remember sitting on the tailgate of my truck, rain dripping from my hood, staring at the forest. I felt exposed in a way I hadn't before. Every movement in the trees, every rustle of leaves, every shadow seemed alive with him. The shocking part, the part that made me realize how close I came to something far worse, was that I had only survived because I screamed at the exact right moment. If I had been quieter, slower, or even just frozen a little longer, he could have been inside the tent before the police arrived. That was the truth I couldn't forget. This wasn't an isolated encounter. I wasn't just unlucky. I was targeted. And the notebook proved he had done this before.
He had chosen me.
The police told me to be careful. They didn't know if he would come back. No one did. And as I drove away, I kept thinking about that notebook, those entries, and how close he had been. Closer than I ever realized. I still can't believe he was out there, hidden in the darkness, methodical, patient, and completely unknown. And that thought alone makes every night in the forest feel unsafe. Weeks have passed since that night, but I haven't been back to any campground alone. Friends keep asking if I want to go hiking or camping, and I make excuses. Even driving past the forest where it happened makes my stomach twist. I can't explain why, but I feel eyes on me every time I think about it. The police never caught him. They never found the man from my campsite. No one reported a suspect, no prints, no camera footage besides what they collected that night. The notebook and the small hidden camera were the only proof that he existed. And even that didn't tell us who he was. The pages ended abruptly at my campsite, as if he stopped, or maybe he moved somewhere else. Sometimes at night, I hear small noises outside my apartment. A car door closing, a branch tapping against the window, or the faint sound of breathing. I tell myself it's nothing, but then my mind flashes back to that night. The slow, deliberate footsteps circling the tent, the way he waited, patient, calm, just out of sight. I still think about the notebook, the lists, the careful planning. He didn't make a mistake. He could be anywhere, somewhere out there, watching, waiting for the next person who goes camping alone. And I can't help wondering, what if he remembers me? The worst part is that I'll never know. I'll never know who he really was, why he chose me, or if he's coming back. Every time I close my eyes, I see the shadow leaning against the tent wall, breathing and waiting. I keep telling myself I'm safe now, but the thought doesn't last. Every time I hear a noise in the dark, my heart races. Sometimes, just sometimes, I swear I feel the same presence from that night, just beyond the trees, watching, waiting for the right moment. The case is still open. The man is still out there. And I still can't shake the feeling that he knows I'm thinking about him. Because he's patient. And he doesn't need to make a mistake. I still don't know who he was, and I'm terrified I might never find out. Months have passed since that night, but it never really ended for me. Life went back to normal on the surface. I returned to work. I paid bills. I slept in my own bed. To everyone else, it looked like I moved on. But something stayed with me. I stopped camping completely. I sold most of my gear. The tent, the sleeping bag, the lantern. I didn't want reminders. Even driving past wooded areas made my chest tighten. Trees didn't feel peaceful anymore. They felt like places where someone could stand still and wait without being seen. The police checked in once more and then stopped calling. They told me there were no updates.
No suspects.
No similar reports in nearby counties. The backpack and notebook were logged into evidence, but without a name or a face, there was nowhere to go. What bothered me most was how organized everything had been. The lists, the dates, the camera. That meant he didn't act on impulse. He planned. He observed. He waited until he felt ready. And that meant he could do it again. Sometimes late at night, I replay the details in my head. The exact moment the breathing stopped. The way the zipper moved just slightly, like he didn't want to rush. I wonder how long he had been there before I noticed him. 10 minutes. An hour. Longer. There's one thought I can't get rid of. What if I wasn't the first one that night? The notebook had dates before mine. Campsites marked as alone. I don't know what happened to those people. The police never told me, and I never asked. I was afraid of the answer. A few weeks ago, I woke up to the sound of footsteps outside my apartment door.
Slow.
Careful. I lay in bed, frozen, listening. After a minute, the sound moved away. Probably a neighbor. Probably nothing. But I didn't sleep after that. Now, every night, I lock my doors twice. I check my windows. I keep my phone charged and my keys close. I listen the same way I did in that tent, memorizing sounds, trying to tell which ones belong and which ones don't. The scariest part isn't what happened. It's what didn't. He was never caught. He was never identified. And he never made a mistake big enough to stop him. Somewhere out there, There's a man who knows how to move quietly, who knows how to watch without being seen, who knows how to wait. And every time I hear breathing that isn't mine, I think the same thing. Maybe he didn't disappear. Maybe he just moved on. And maybe one night, he'll find someone else who thinks they're alone, in a place that feels safe. Until it doesn't.